everyone. Come on in because we are here for Married at First Sight, Season 18, Part 2 of the reunion. And I know this is just called Reunion Part 2, but I'm going to retitle it like I always do, A Trash versus Treasure. Trash versus treasure. There's an old saying that says, one person's trash is another person's treasure. And that's what we're finding out here with David and Madison. That you know what is one person's trash is another person's treasure. And we're going to talk about it. I did not get a chance to watch the entire reunion part 2. So instead of holding this review up, y'all, what I decided to do was break up these reviews this week for each couple, or I'll see as I go along. But this review right now, this recap, this conversation, I thought was worth a video all by itself because I actually want to talk about this love story with David and Madison. Because at this point, no matter how angry you might be at Madison or David, you've got to admit that it's a love story. And I said once I started to realize who Madison really was, once I realized that Madison, both Madison and David, more so Madison, honestly, more so Madison, had lied to us about who she really was, I saw immediately that these two were a good match. Once you got out of your mind that Madison had been lying to us all along, that she really wasn't a good girl looking for a good guy, when Madison told us she was used to dating pretty boys, that's what she told us. Um, but she wanted a guy who wanted to get married. In the end, what Madison was used to dating were bad boys because she's a bad girl, but she wanted a bad boy who really wanted to settle down and get married. And we can see that in David. We can see the way that David moves. He's very, very flirtatious. He's very, very bold, okay? Which means there's a good chance that he was out in the world and he flirts with multiple women. He's told us this. But he wanted to get married. He wanted to settle down. He knew that he needed a woman in his life because David, without a woman in his life, lives in the basement apartment. That's what happens to David. When David doesn't have a woman in his life that's orchestrating his life, he lingers in the basement apartment with bar equipment. His mama was tired of it. So his mama wanted him to have a woman too. Remember, during the matchmaking portion or after they got announced, the mama told us what type of woman David would need. He needed a go-getter type of woman. And you know what? That was Madison. That was Madison. And we never thought that Madison would like David initially because when Madison told us she liked was nothing like David. But in the end, David is exactly what Madison likes. So, you know what? At this point in time, Michelle's trash was Madison's treasure. And if any of y'all been watching my channel, you know that I love love. I love love. And these two are in love. And like I said earlier, videos back, I believe they're going to make it. I believe they're going to get married. And I believe they make actually a very, very good couple. But we're going to talk about it more in depth, how I got here. I'm going to be asking y'all, what do you think? So we're going to play my introduction video. While I play it, be sure to like the video, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to comment down below. So first of all, I want to talk about the fact of, like I said, one person's trash is another person's treasure. And I also want to start talking about this theory that I have that also sort of explains why David and Madison have this I don't give a damn attitude and how people felt they were so cavalier at the reunion, constantly acting as if they didn't care about um, Alan's feelings and how they were rude to him and sort of flaunting in his face. I'm going to go back to the timeline. I know David and Madison don't want to talk about the timeline, But I really wish that they would. And I really wish they would talk about it, not from a point of shame, because I think that's why David said here, I respectfully decline to keep talking about the timeline. But I wish what they would do is they would step out in their boldness. I wish they would step out in their truth. But that's part of the problem with David and Madison is that they aren't necessarily um, truthful people. But I wish that they would. Because if I were David at this point, I actually would stop hiding from the timeline. If I were Madison, I would not stop hiding from the timeline. Because in a lot of ways, they're still trying to protect their image that they're really just good people, but they found themselves in this situation. And really, what they should lean into is the real story. Because let me tell you what I think the real story is. I think the real story is this started on the honeymoon, like I've been saying, tacos, tacos, tacos. David went out and had tacos very early on the honeymoon. It was darn near the first night or second night of the honeymoon that David went out and had tacos. This is pointing back to that David and Michelle actually, as David likes to say, catching feelings, they actually started having attraction and catching feelings for each other on day one of the honeymoon. Really, what this is, y'all, is love at first sight. Instead of being married at first sight, this is love at first sight. And if David and Madison were really smart, and if they really just kicked aside this trying to lie, and they just said, you know what? To be honest with you, I fell in love with that man. I started falling in love with that man from the very first time that I saw him, or I started falling in love with that woman for the very first time that I saw her. If they had the honesty within them, they would lean into that. Because you know what that would then do? What it would then say is, first of all, it would explain why they actually both don't feel like they cheated on their husbands and wives. Because remember, before you can cheat on someone, there needs to be an establishment of a bond, right? And I know that we said Michelle never liked David. So we kind of gave David a bit more of a pass because we knew Michelle never really liked him, but we still felt he had committed to the marriage, which that's what I still hold on to. And then what Madison did was she faked her bond with Alan the whole time as if she were really trying to bond with him. But now we know what we know, what we know. Imagine this. Imagine that the very first day of the honeymoon, when they all got together, the very first workout session, that David and Madison, from that very first moment, fell in love with each other. That would mean that there was never any bond whatsoever with Michelle nor Alan. There was never any bond. So there was never even a breaking of the bond. Um, I Even though there's still going to be this part where you feel like what they should have done was they should have waited until after the season to explore it. They could have taken another step and they could have said they want to lean 100% to it and they could have talked to the producers about it. That's what they could have done. They could have said, you know what? I have already fallen in love with this man for love at first sight, and just go full blown in with your honesty. That is the difference between people who lead with honesty and people who don't lead with honesty. Because honestly, using honesty word again, I couldn't have put up this charade for this long that Madison and David did. I couldn't have put up with this charade. If I really had the feelings that Madison and David are trying to tell us that they had, there is no way I could have gone along all this time, stringing along Alan, stringing along Michelle, maybe not stringing her along, but he's even playing the game, if I had these strong feelings. And I do believe that the attraction started with these two from day one. Day one. The reason why they were able to fly under the radar, even for the period of time that they did, was honestly not because of David. It was because of Madison. David, we already know, he told us he was a mama's boy. He loves to be coddled. He loves to be stroked. He loves to be adored. We already knew that about him. That's why we knew he wasn't going to get along with Michelle, because Michelle was really, really abrasive. Michelle is the opposite of what David would need. It was a horrible pairing with David with Michelle, because here you have two people who are on opposite ends of the pole. You have David, who likes constant attention. He needs constant stroking, constant adoring, constant support, right? And you have Michelle, who's really independent. She's abrasive. She's hard to get to know. She has walls up, right? So what you would have is you'd have two people who both need a certain type of nurturing in the beginning of the relationship, but neither one of them will be able to provide it to the other one. You see, um, Michelle wouldn't be able to provide the nurturing to David that he would need to feel good in the relationship, because first of all, he needs even more than the average person. And David would not be able to provide the security to Michelle in terms of finances in his life that she would need to come out of her shell, because even Michelle needs more than the average person. Michelle finally is admitting that she has walls up and she can be judgmental. Thank you, Michelle. Hopefully, Michelle is realizing what her dilemma has been in dating, and hopefully, she realizes it has nothing to do with the men. Once Michelle gets out of her mind that the reason she isn't married is because she hasn't met the right guy, but the reason she isn't married is because of her, she will turn her life around. Because I think what Michelle has done all this time is said, I haven't met the guy who can do what he needs to do to break down my walls. So therefore, I'm not married. I hope what Michelle is realizing is it's not the job of men to break down your walls. Should they make you feel overly uncomfortable? No. But it's your job to come in open to a relationship so you can receive something from the other person. And what Michelle does is Michelle comes in closed off, walls up, and expects you to break down her walls. That's why she was so appalled at David, that David didn't spend a whole lot of time breaking down her walls. Because in the end, that's what happened. David wants us to believe he was trying hard with Michelle, but actually he wasn't. He wasn't trying hard at all. In fact, the minute David went to that gym with Madison on the very first day, and Madison was more receptive to him than Michelle was, he was out of trying with Michelle and he was already gravitating to Madison. David goes where the honey is. And when he immediately saw on day one that the honey was with Madison, he was not really trying with Michelle, not at all. So David needs to stop the line that the reason why I pivoted to Madison is because Michelle had all her walls up. The truth of the matter is that David would have gone with whatever woman gave him the most honey. And let me tell you, Madison was giving David the honey from day one. Day one. David finally admitted that there had already been flirting going on at the time he sent that message, you look so good, I could eat you up. He didn't go so far to say that they had physical contact, but we know they did. We know absolutely they did. David wants us to believe that he's so fly and he's got such good game and he's so full of confidence that he will be so confident to go out on a limb and say that salacious comment to Madison without having any sort of assurances that she would favorably respond to it. No way. David does not have that sort of confidence. David wants to talk about he's full of confidence and full of swag. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. That's why you know when he wrote that message, he was fully confident in writing it because they had already established physical contact prior to that message being sent. He wants us to believe that the first time that they kissed was at Juan's, and stop calling it Juan's warehouse, it's Juan's business partner's warehouse. They want us to believe that the first kiss they had was at Juan's warehouse when they was dressed all in red. That's not true. So David, you want us to believe that the first kiss you had with Madison, you held it for a camera moment. I don't believe it. You want us to believe that you could hold in all your passion, as passionate as you are, for the moment on camera, and that you never prior to this time had a passionate kiss and embrace with Madison. We don't believe it. Once again, David continuing to lie. Continuing to lie. Both he and Madison continuing to lie. They both are liars to their core. They're both willing to lie in situations in order to have the situation turn out the way they like. Will they both be susceptible to lying in the relationship? I'm sure they will be. I'm sure there will be. But the two of them work well together because Madison wants to be a leader. We saw that. Madison is competitive. She's a leader. She likes to lead. David has admitted that Madison is the breadwinner in the family. David has finally told us that, yeah, he's doing better because he and Madison have bought an investment property. And I was thinking, wow, how in the heck did the two of you, with your little bit of money, David, because Michelle already told us you didn't have a lot saved up. You told us that you didn't have a lot saved up. How do y'all buy an investment property? Either Madison had to put in pretty much all of the money or something else is at play here. And we finally realized what's at play. And what's at play is they bought the investment property in Iowa. I tell you, David knows how to spin a story. This is why you got to have the details with David. Buying an investment property in Chicago is quite a bit different than buying an investment property in Iowa, where you probably can buy an investment property for $80,000. That's fine, David. But I got to tell you, if you're ever talking to David, you better get the details. From where do you live? Basement, apartment. You better get the details because the truth with David is in the details. David likes to sugarcoat things, tell you things out here so you feel good about him. He doesn't want to tell you about the finer points. I applaud them for buying an investment property. Good for them. I don't want to look down on it because it is a step forward in terms of their real estate portfolio. But what David tried to make us believe was that, yeah, Michelle was wrong. I really did have a lot of money saved up. And now here I am buying a property in Chicago. No, you bought an investment property in Iowa. That's so different, David. But if I look at David and I look at Madison, I think about who's winning and who's losing. And I don't want to call Michelle a loser because if she can turn this corner, like I said, she can be a winner too. But in this moment right now, I have to say David is winning because what Michelle, hopefully she realizes now that one of the things she said was she never trusted David from the very beginning, that she felt that he was not truthful and that he was hiding things. And therefore, her instincts ended up being right. Now, I think we can all give her that. I think that her distrust of David, knowing that he wasn't fully truthful in the beginning, ended up playing out exactly as she felt it. But what I believe Michelle does is she applies this to everyone. So imagine this. Imagine you're a one-trick pony, which I believe Michelle has been a one-trick pony. Hopefully she's changing this. Imagine that you don't just treat people like David like this, where you're suspicious of them, you don't trust them, you have your walls up. Sure, in the end, you can say your instincts, your suspicion protected you from a David. But what happens in those situations where you have your walls up, but it was actually a good person? In that respect, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So in one way, you go into relationships and you say, I'm going to have my walls up. I'm going to have my guards up to protect me. Well, that strategy only works when you were protecting yourself from a bona fide, let's say, bad person, which we can say David was. He was less than honest. So your system worked for you, Michelle. But the problem with Michelle is she uses the same system with everyone, right? So really what I can say about Michelle is she really actually doesn't have what I want to call good discernment. She doesn't, because good discernment allows you to distinguish between the good and the bad. And what Michelle has is she actually doesn't know how to distinguish. She actually just uses the same game plan for everyone. And so what happens is sometimes she wins, sometimes she loses. And I know she has this same game plan, not only with men, she does it with women. She does it with her female friendships. So what happens is Michelle has a 50-50 shot. And really, she doesn't even have a 50-50 shot because imagine this. Imagine you deploy Michelle's game plan of walls up. It protects you from the good people, but what it does is it prevents you from also connecting. The walls up protect you from the bad people, but the walls up also prevent you from connecting with the good people. The only people that are going to get through to you are people who are willing to stick in there and take your blows, have you pound at them until they can break through your walls. And what I'm going to tell you is that's less of a percent of the population. So Michelle's odds of meeting a guy now have been dwindled down to 20%. 20%. That's what her walls are doing. So, any woman out there operating with walls, what you've got to know is if you believe your walls are helping you meet people, meet the right people, and weed people out, you may be protecting yourself against the bad people. But just like Michelle, you are also disconnecting yourself from meeting good people. So, in her relationship with David, in a lot of ways, it also became a self fulfilling prophecy. The tool she used to protect herself also becomes the weapon that she uses to self inflict upon herself. And what David is doing is David is leaning into what his strength is. David is saying, my strength is not being the breadwinner. Madison is. He's leaning into it. He's saying, my strength is treating Madison like a queen, and she values that. This is going to be a lesson to some people. This is right here, this point that David is making is going to be a lesson to a lot of people. And I also want it to be a lesson to a lot of black women. A lot of black women believe that it is only black women that date men who earn less than them. This is what is put out here in America, that the only women dating men that earn less than them are black women, and black women say they're tired of it. They want black men to step up and earn more money. Let me tell you something. Let this be a lesson to all women that there are a lot of women, not just black women, white women, black women, Asian women, Hispanic women that are out earning their men. But you know what you don't know? You don't know it. When Madison has finally become showing her real self, she's shown herself to be a competitive, strong, independent woman that wants to go after her career, that likes to party hard. She wants to dance on tables. She likes risky situations. She's excited, and she actually is attracted to a man who likes to take risks, who are bad boys. This is what Madison told us. She does not want to be subservient to a guy. She wants to be a leader. She wants to be in charge. But what she also wants is she wants a man that's going to adore her. She wants a man that's going to think she's the queen, that she's the prize. She wants a man that's going to constantly tell her how beautiful she is. Okay. And what David is telling us on TV today is everything that Madison wants, I'm delivering. She's the leader in the finances. She can do whatever the hell she wants to do. She can lead our whole financial world, right? I get a beautiful blonde woman, which is the woman that I want. And then what I will do is I will adore her. I will help her. I will open doors for her. I will take her to dinner. I will do all these things that appeal to her emotional side, and I will let Madison chase whatever career dream she has. I will let Madison be the shot caller in this relationship. I said from the very beginning that the person calling the shots this whole season in this David and Madison relationship was Madison. And David is saying he's fine with that. He is fine taking a back seat to Madison. And that's what Michelle didn't want. In a lot of ways, Michelle isn't even being honest with who she is. Michelle is walking around saying that she wants a leader also. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think that Michelle would actually do well with an alpha type male because Michelle likes to stay in control. And although she says she wants the security of a guy who's got it all together, that guy that's got it all together isn't going to always necessarily relinquish control to Michelle, and Michelle wants control. So I always tell ladies, be understand not only what you're asking for, understand would a man also want you. And the type of control that Michelle wants in a relationship, although she thinks she wants this strong, independent alpha male, to be honest, she actually wants to be more of a leader in the relationship, just like Madison. But what she doesn't want to accept, along with that job, is having to do some of the heavy lifting that Madison is doing in the relationship with David, which is being the leader in the finances, being the one to say, hey, you need to do this, and you need to do that, you need to do this. A lot of women want both worlds. They want the world in which their men are leaders and strong and capable and confident and breadwinners, but then they also want to come along and also be strong and confident leaders and call all the shots too. When those two personalities get together, someone's got to be willing to step down. And what David has said in his relationship with Madison is, I'm willing to be the guy that steps down and provides the emotional security in the relationship. And Madison can go ahead and provide more of the financial security and more of the leadership in the relationship. And it's working for them. And I think it's going to continue to work for them. There was a part in the reunion where they were round table talking about who's most likely to whatever. And Kevin Frazier asked, who is the most open book? And they said Dave, and they said Alan was the most open book. And like we said, this is also part of the betrayal that really went on. When Madison and Michelle, when Michelle was confiding in Madison, Madison was using the information from Michelle to actually bond and connect with David, to get in his good graces. Madison was using the intel from Michelle to actually become more endeared to David. And now we find out that Alan, being an open book, was confiding with David. And that's also how David was also using that information to bond more with Madison. So when we talk about when did this love affair start, there were so many things at play that created this sort of situation. One is these two people had instant physical attraction to each other. The second part about it was that Michelle, yes, pushed away David, which made him vulnerable to Madison. But the other third part about it was both Michelle and Alan were confiding in Madison and David, telling them their business about what was good and bad about their partners. And that allowed Madison and David to actually learn about each other through the talking of both Michelle and Alan. This is a lesson to people. Be careful who you talk to about your marriage. Be careful who you talk to about your lover, your relationship. Because sometimes when people are listening to you complain about your mate, your partner, your spouse, they could be using that information to also form their own connection to your own mate, to your own spouse. You see, this is how women and men conjure up the idea. All these things you saying, girl, you don't like, ooh, I would love that. So you're actually introducing your husband to another woman without him even being there. And that's also when it played with this whole little fiasco. They asked Madison, when did you know you were willing to risk it all? And she said, oh, it was after I saw him all broken down for Michelle. Stop it, Madison. Stop trying to say that your feelings came as a result of what something Michelle did. I want them to get to a place of honesty. And actually, you know what? Honesty could be a beautiful story. You could actually say it was love at first sight. Instead of trying to say you became interested in each other because of what Michelle did, just say the truth, y'all. Just say that we had an instant attraction to each other from the moment that we saw each other. And it was actually harder to stay apart than it was for us to get together. If you had just leaned into your honesty, you actually would have been together sooner than this. You could have been honest with the producers, and you could have been honest with each other and with each of your spouses. But in the end, y'all, I believe in this couple. I love love. I wish them well. I think they're going to do well. I'm pretty sure they're going to get married. I think they're going to go on to get married and have children. I think David and Michelle are going to be a couple. I think David and Madison are going to be a couple we see for years coming. You know how they bring couples back and they show them years after years? I think that's going to be David and Madison. I think these two are a very solid couple. And once you really understand who they really are, they actually really do support each other in those areas in which could be seen flaws by other people, but the two of them actually plug the holes of each other in those areas. So that's all I got. I'm going to come back later and do a review on the other couples, but that's all I got right now for this. I'll catch y'all later on video number 2. Alrighty. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to leave a comment down below. Alrighty. Bye.